Hi folks, welcome to part 4 of putting the OM605 engine into the Land Rover. This video might seem a little bit disjointed because because real life's taken over. I've had to go and do my normal job, my day job, and as a result there's been a couple of weeks delay in getting this latest video to you. But I'm back in the workshop for a little while, and this video is going to primarily focus on the exhaust and fitting the exhaust and the problems that we've encountered while doing so. If you remember back, the exhaust is actually a modified, well, it's a 300 TDI exhaust system that I've bought for the Land Rover, and it's needed some modification to get it to work. So the video now will go back about 3 weeks to just after the last video was uploaded, where we'll discuss the exhaust and I'll take you through exactly what we've had to do to get to this point.
Hi everybody, it's Monday afternoon and I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about some of these problems that we've encountered after fitting the engine. So if you just come in a little bit closer to the Land Rover, you'll see that we spoke about when we did the restoration last year. We fitted this bulkhead and we modified the bulkhead slightly. We cut out a section of the footwell on the near side footwell here to give us clearance around the 200 TDI turbo and various other little bits and bobs. It works really well for the Mercedes engine because it gives us plenty of access, nice easy access to the starter motor, the clutch slave cylinder, which should be right down there, the oil filter housing, various other little bits and bobs, makes clearance a little bit better. You may also notice that the bulkhead is now completely stripped, and I'm going to tell you why. So we've encountered another quite big issue, but it's going to be resolvable. So on the other side of the engine, because it's all completely opposite to the 200 TDI, the turbo is on this side, it's on the other side on the 200 TDI, and all the fuel system is on that side, whereas on the 200 it was on this side. And we've already spoken about in a previous video the turbo adapter, which we've custom made to fit this different turbo to the engine. And we've encountered, unfortunately, quite a big clearance issue. So the turbo's got a plate that bolts onto the back of it, which I'll bolt on here, just temporarily so you can see. So if you just come in a little bit closer, this bolts in to the back of the turbo there. It's held on normally with studs, but I'll just put these short bolts in just so you can see. And it's got a V-band clamp on it, a V-band adapter, which is like a standard fitment for turbo downpipe. So really, really good in that respect. But unfortunately, we've got a little bit of a drama. Have a look at the lack of clearance there. The turbo is going to try and exit straight into the footwell on the driver's side. So this is partly caused by a mistake on my part when getting the parts for this conversion. And the mistake is that really I should have gone for a standard length R380 bell housing, not a stumpy bell housing. A standard length one would have brought the engine forward potentially maybe another 4 or 5 inches, which would have meant that we'd have plenty of room for the turbo downpipe, plenty of clearance for that. But it might have introduced some other issues. It might have affected clearance at the front. So we are where we are with it. We've ended up where we are with this clearance issue. Luckily, it's dead easy to resolve. We're going to cut a section out of this footwell, broadly similar to what we've done on the near side, but cut a section out of this footwell, do a little bit of moving around of the brake compensator valve and some wiring that's down there. Just to give us the clearance there, and then the downpipe can come straight out of the exhaust, straight down, and then underneath the vehicle and away towards the back. And we're hoping, having looked at everything else now the engine's in, we're hopeful that that is going to be the last of our clearance issues. It's also going to cause us a little bit of a problem. Well, not a problem, it's just going to cause us to have to put some heat shielding around this area because there's brake pipes, there's wiring, there's a few other little bits and bobs that run close to the turbo. So we're going to have to factor in some heat shielding around that side of things. It's going to get hot this side of the engine anyway with the turbo working hard. Airflow isn't great in a Defender engine bay, so we're going to have to just make some provision for heat shielding. So that's what we're going to get on with now. We're going to take the bulkhead off. It's almost ready to come off. There's only 2 bolts holding it on now. It's pretty loose. And then do some cutting, grinding, welding, and that should be it all sorted. So yeah, I'll update you shortly. Thank you.
Hi folks, so that's the bulkhead sorted, and now we can start to think about the exhaust pipe itself, where it's going to be routed and particularly how the downpipe's going to work. So we've done the modification, we've got plenty of clearance now, and I've managed to get hold of these really useful little segments of exhaust. So these are, they've got little tiny teeth on them and little tiny cutouts there, and the idea being that you can link them together and make shapes, really nice shapes, and then you weld round and it creates a exhaust pipe. So we've used some tape. The great thing about them is you can tape them together. This is the start of the downpipe. So this is the V-band clamp. If you come and have a look at the exhaust itself, at the turbo, created this shape, and it's not quite 90 degrees. It takes 6 segments to make a 90-degree shape, but you can curve it in different directions. And that's going to go onto the turbo there with a V-band clamp around it, and you can see it goes down and then angles down towards the bottom of the vehicle, and then it'll eventually end up down into the underneath the floor and then down towards the rear of the vehicle, as you can see there. It's not a lot of clearance, but these segments are really, really good. It saves cutting and welding and cutting and welding. You can create that shape, hold it together, know that you've got the shape, tack it and confirm it and make sure that it's going to fit. So with that in mind, we've made a start with the exhaust. Now you'll remember a few days ago I spoke about that I'd managed to get hold of a nice 2.5 inch stainless exhaust, which was, it's a modification for a 300 TDI Defender at 110, and that exhaust is going to be really, it's going to be ideal for this this engine. So I'm just going to put the lift up and I'll show you exactly what we've been doing on the exhaust and where we're up to so far. Okay, come underneath and have a look. So we've spent quite a lot of time today routing this exhaust. So if you come all the way to the back, I quite like exhaust to be subtle. I don't like big shouty tailpipes or you know, big obvious exhaust. So managed to get an exhaust that's got a nice little slash cut on it there. It's going to tuck nicely underneath the rear cross member and the body, which will be about here, so it'll be nice and hidden. But it's good diameter, 2.5 inch, which is what's needed, because obviously with the more exhaust gases we can flow, the quicker the turbo will spool up and there'll be no restrictions in the exhaust. So little silencer, it's clamped onto the back nicely. We've just got some temporary aluminium tape on it at the moment, just holding it together because we've got to get some decent clamps to hold the exhaust on. As you can see, it goes up and over the axle, it allows for articulation of the axle, and it works its way along. Another clamp there, and right the way forward. Now, we've done some modification. This is actually originally the downpipe for the 300 TDI turbo. It would have continued along, and where this bend is here, it would have gone through past the cross member and up to the turbo on the near side there, which is where it would be on the 300 TDI, but obviously our turbo is on the other side. So we've modified it, retained a flexi, and then created these little brackets here that bolt to 3 captive bolt holes within the gearbox housing that give us a nice secure location for this this sort of cross piece, if you like, that goes along underneath the gearbox. We've made sure that we've got clearance under here, so there's no issues in terms of, you know, anything that's going to get in the way of the exhaust. But now we've got to think about, we've got to use those segments and various other little bits and pieces to get the exhaust to go up through this cutout. Now you might remember from way back in the day a year ago that we created this cutout to allow room for the exhaust on the other side for the 200 TDI. This is going to be helpful for us on this side. So we've swapped the gearbox cross member over to put that where it needs to be. The exhaust is going to go, it's going to do a sharp 90-degree bend there, up through the gap between the prop and the chassis rail there, and then up and straight up and into the turbo downpipe, which you can see there. So you can see, that's the alternator, okay, that's the turbo. You can see how useful this modification to the bulkhead is on this side, because obviously without that, as we've already spoke about, there'd be no clearance for the exhaust. So that's pretty much where we're up to now. So next job is to get it back down off the lift. In fact, no, we'll leave it on the lift and we'll carry on doing the exhaust downpipe, get that created. and then bolted in place, and then that's the exhaust sorted and one step closer to turning it over. Thank you very much. So on the last little bit, I talked about the manufacturing of the downpipe and the other little bits and pieces of the exhaust needed to connect the rear section up onto the turbo itself. And we've done that. The last couple of days we spent manufacturing these really nice, this is the downpipe, bolts onto the turbo. Comes out of the turbo down near the front prop shaft and will connect to this nice section here. They all effectively join together, run underneath the gearbox and towards the back of the Land Rover. And I'd really like to show you them fitted. In fact, they should be fitted now because they should have been on and forgotten about. Well, not forgotten about, but moved on to the next part of the project. Unfortunately, we've encountered a problem, another problem. So I'll put these down. Right, so you'll remember in a previous video I spoke about the clutch and flywheel, and I took you through exactly what was needed to fit the Land Rover gearbox to the Mercedes engine. Now, I don't remember exactly how I looked, but I happened to notice that it seemed like when looking into the flywheel from the bottom of the engine, there's a little gap in the sump there you can look in. It looked like the flywheel was really, really tight up to the engine block, and I thought, oh, that's a bit close. I wonder if the engine still spins over okay. Now, this was in the middle of doing the exhaust. Got distracted, and I put a bar on the engine. Now this should spin over really, really easily, and it is rock solid. Totally rock solid. There's no movement on the engine at all, which is really, really bad. Now, this video is going to end on a bit of a cliffhanger, I suppose, because I don't know what the problem is. There's two things it could be. The first thing it could be is that the flywheel that we've got is wrong, and I suspect that's what it is. I suspect the flywheel is the problem. Last video, I put a very little short section on about us machining the flywheel down because we realised it wouldn't fit properly. Now, without going into loads of boring detail about Mercedes flywheels and the differences, it turns out that this engine, although it's a late engine out of a late C-Class, a 1998 C-Class, for some reason it had an early flywheel on it out of an early 90s car, which is a little bit thicker. So there's two things it could be. The first thing is that because that flywheel is a little bit thicker, it's spaced everything out slightly in the clutch and inside the bell housing of the gearbox, and as a result, the clutch is tight up against the bell housing, which I can't see because obviously it's all bolted together. The other option, which I hope it isn't, is that the nose of the input shaft, which goes into the back of the crankshaft, you remember I pressed that little bush in, or tap that little bush in that's designed to support the nose of the input shaft for the gearbox. It could be that the input shaft for the gearbox is too long, and that's pressing hard against the end of the crank, which you know is also a problem. Neither of them are insurmountable, but what it does unfortunately mean is that the gearbox has got to come off. Well, two options, engine out or gearbox out, and we've gone for getting the gearbox out. So just come and have a quick look. I've already taken the props off, and the reason that we can't fit the exhaust is because the exhaust would obviously go right underneath the gearbox here. I've taken the prop shafts off already to help us get the gearbox out. So this video is going to end on us making a start on getting the gearbox out, and the next video will hopefully start with us dropping the box off and actually finding out what the problem is. So yeah, that's where we are. Thank you very much for watching. I know it's not the best ending because I really would have liked this video to have ended on the Land Rover actually turning over and running, but it's not to be. We'll get the gearbox off and I'll update in the next video, hopefully not too long. So I've got a few days off work now to get the box off, find out what the problem is, and update you with it. So yeah, like I said, thank you for watching. Please recommend this video. Please like and subscribe. The subscribers help. We're slowly creeping up in subscriber numbers now, and it's nice, and getting a few comments, and it's clearly, the videos are clearly helpful, and that's the whole point of all this. Is I don't just want it to be, oh look, you know, we're putting a Mercedes engine in a Land Rover, you know, blah blah blah. I want it to be actually, somebody might watch this series of videos and think, oh, I fancy doing that, and perhaps some of the problems that we're encountering while doing this project might mean that somebody else will swerve them, and their project might go a little bit easier, a little bit smoother. So yeah, thank you very much, appreciate it, and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button for me please, and I'll update you in part 5. Thank you.